Hello everyone, Carlos Garrido from Midwestern Marx. I want to recommend to you today 7 of the best socialist movies, in my opinion at least. But before we start, I wanted to remind you that the Midwestern Marx Publishing Press just published Dr. Thomas Riggins's Reading the Classical Texts of Marxism. If you're new to reading Marxism, this is definitely a book that I would recommend. It goes through the hardest economic, philosophical, scientific concepts in Marxism, and it breaks them down to you in a very elementary language so that everyone is able to understand it. If you're a little bit read in the Marxist tradition, this book is also helpful because it takes certain things that were said that have been scientifically developed over the years, and it shows you where it is that, for instance, when Lenin or when Engels are talking about a specific scientific question, where it is that the science has gone since the time of their writing. Has it confirmed dialectical materialism? Has it gone against dialectical materialism? Were Engels and Lenin right in the specific things that they said? Questions like that. So it's a book that helps you contextualize the science, the philosophy, the economic side of Marxism. It's a very well-rounded book for anyone looking to know Marxism. And it's a book that's done by someone who has been teaching Marxism and militating as a communist for more than 60 years, and who has taught in prestigious institutions such as the New School for Social Research and New York University. So definitely check that out. I would link the book to the description box below. You can get it in hardback or paper cover. Okay, so now top 7 socialist movie list. The first one I want to start off with is Motorcycle Diaries. This is a quite popular one. It deals with the trip that Che Guevara takes across Latin America, South America specifically, in the year before he graduates as a medical doctor. In this trip, he finds some of the brutalities of capitalism, and specifically the sort of capitalism that exists in these peripheral regions where indigenous labor is super exploited, and where there's mass unemployment, and where the conditions are just all around quite difficult. This begins Che's process of radicalization, and although he comes back home when he's done, he finishes his career and he goes around again, and in that second trip, that's when he begins to turn into Che. In this movie, you see the beginning of the development of Che's radicalization at a time when he's just Ernesto Guevara. The movie's in Spanish, but you should be able to find it with English subtitles, and it's not that difficult to find. The second movie I would recommend is called 1900. This is one that I just recently saw, and if you plan on seeing it, please make sure to take out a whole day for it, or to divide it into 2, because the movie's almost 5 hours. But anyways, it's called 1900 because it tracks 2 boys that were born in 1900 on the same day. And it deals with Italy and the struggles in Italy, both against fascism and for socialism and the rights of workers and peasants. For those of you who are somewhat familiar with the scene of Italian communism and the struggle for socialism in Italy, this question deals nicely with what's called the Southern question. So the question of how is it that we consider the peasantry in southern Italy in connection to our struggle for socialism? What relationship do they have to the proletariat? So it's a wonderful movie, and it's got Robert De Niro in it, a young Robert De Niro, and a few other soon-to-be famous actors. So I would definitely recommend it. The third movie I would recommend is called Even the Rain. This one deals with a film crew that is in Bolivia to film a movie about the discovery of the Americas by Christopher Columbus, which also includes historically seen as progressive figures as Bartolomé de las Casas, who was one of the first figures to really criticize the treatment of the Spanish of the indigenous. But anyways, in the process of them shooting the film, you begin to see some of the social turmoil going on in Bolivia as water is being privatized under the brutal neoliberal capitalism regime that existed there. And this really is what sets the ground for the movement that would eventually, in 2005, elect Evo Morales and the movement towards socialism party in Bolivia, which has made over the last almost 2 decades now some of the most impressive transformations to a country that had the highest rates of poverty in the region. So this is a wonderful movie, and one of the actors is the same person that plays Che in Motorcycle Diaries. Again, this movie is in Spanish, but you should be able to catch English subtitles with it. The fourth movie that I would like to recommend is The Young Karl Marx. I watch this movie approximately every 2 months, and that's been the case ever since it came out. It is a wonderful film, and as a Marx scholar, I'm still impressed with how historically and theoretically accurate it is. It traces the life of Marx in particular, but also of Engels in connection with him, from the time that Marx writes in the early 1840s, his article on the theft on woods, all the way up to 1848, when there's an eruption of revolutions across Europe, which create the occasion for which the Communist Manifesto was written for. It's a fantastic film, and I would highly recommend you watch it. It's recently done, so it's a great film, and it's done by Raoul Peck, who also did the movie on James Baldwin called I Am Not Your Negro. The next movie I'd like to recommend is called Reds. This one traces the life of the American communist journalist and historian Jack Reed, or John Reed. He was the one who wrote the famous book 10 Days That Shook the World about the Bolshevik Revolution in 1917. He was one of the few Americans to actually be present during the revolution, and this book traces not only his early career as a journalist and the process of his radicalization with his partner, but it also traces that trip to Russia, the experiences that he had, and it traces the sort of difficulties that the revolution had early on. It's a wonderful film, and like 1900, it's a pretty long one. It's not as long as 1900, but it's still one that you need quite some time to get through. I believe it's 2 to 3 hours. It's a great film though, so I couldn't stress enough the importance of watching it. The next movie I'd recommend is called Land and Freedom. This one deals with the Spanish Civil War, and the Spanish Civil War is one of those events where different strands of socialists usually look back at it favorably, even though they have different interpretations for why it failed. But in this event, you have the coming together of anarchists, Trotskyites, Marxist-Leninists, socialists of various kinds. And concerning the U.S., we have a brigade that was sent out there called the Abraham Lincoln Brigade. It was a lot of communists, and it was largely organized by the Communist Party. So it's one of those events that that are quite special and that show proletarian internationalism, where working class people from all over the world came to help fight for the Spanish Republic and alongside socialism. So it's a movie that I'll recommend, and it has one of those scenes that if you're a socialist, the hairs on your arms stand up when you watch it, which is when they sing together the Internacional, which I will clip it now.
El dolor que sentimos ahora es muy profundo, es verdad, pero no debe paralizarnos. Los compañeros no han muerto inútilmente. Josefina, Sebastián, Teresa, todos vosotros estáis y estamos luchando por lo mismo, por lo que ellos querían. Y no nos van a parar, que es lo que ellos querían. Están aquí con nosotros, luchando por lo mismo.
Vamos a dejarlos en la tierra. Pero esta tierra ahora nos pertenece, compañeros. Y de aquí tenemos que sacar la fuerza para seguir luchando. Porque la batalla es larga y son muchos. Pero nosotros somos muchos más. Siempre seremos muchos más. El mañana es nuestro, compañeros.
La lucha continúa. No pasarán. Nosotros pasaremos. Arriba, parias de la tierra, en pie famélica legión.
Los proletarios gritan guerra
Hasta el fin de la opresión. Borrar rastros del pasado. Arriba, esclavos. mundo va a cambiar de base, los nada de hoy todo han de ser. Agrupémonos todos en la lucha final. El género humano es la internacional. Agrupémonos todos en la lucha final. El género humano es la internacional. ¡Viva la revolución! ¡Viva! ¡Hasta el fascismo! ¡Muere!
The last movie I'd recommend is the only one that's not based on a historical event, and this one is Sorry to Bother You. It's produced by Boots Riley, who's the communist lead singer of the group The Coup, and it deals with call center workers trying to organize. And at the end, you have somewhat of a science fictional ending, which is unexpected, but it's also great. It's funny, so it's definitely a movie that I would recommend. So that wraps it up, folks. That's my 7 favorite, or the 7 must-watch socialist movies, according to me, at least. Please let me know what your favorite 7 socialist movies are in the comment section. And I hope you all take care. This is Carlos Garrido from Midwestern Marx, signing out.